In my time, it says Wirecast. There's a little.
Oh, cool. All right. Very tiny in the top left.
Yes. Wow, you have good eyes.
From the distance, not close.
Oh my gosh, I wore 2 shirts. We have enough though, right?
Yeah, Cindy will comply in probably in a couple minutes, and Bill is Biggie traffic, good luck. Oh, 7 o'clock. All right, we'll call this meeting to order on September 19th at 7 p.m. If we could pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What'd I tell you? Hello, we got it.
If it's too cold here, we could make it warmer.
Could we maybe
That's
just
an
a
idea.
little? It's a little chilly. True, we jump in our chairs. All right, so attendance and appointment of alternates. So if somebody could please make a motion to have Alan fill Bill's seat until he arrives.
I move to appoint Alan Baker as a regular member until Bill Syme arrives.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion. Okay, opposed? Motion passes. Approval of agenda. Is there anything, everybody happy with what is here? Any additions? All right, so if we could have a motion.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion clearly passes. Number 5, approval of regular meeting minutes, August 15th, 2018. Anybody have any corrections or additions, or are we good?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on August 15th, 2018.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. On to public participation.
There you go.
Nice to see you, Deb. All right, number 7, communications. Yes. 1, just an advertisement. Phoenix Advisors, but nothing we need right now. So other than that, on to monthly reports. So, first would be Town Financial FY 17-18. Did anybody?
I didn't get any questions, but I have revenue in there, which starts on 8A1 and ends on 8A4. And that shows the $601,000 surplus, offset by the additional appropriations of 1130. So we ended up to the positive about $1.7 million. 600 after we spent the 1130.
After we spent the what?
1130, that was the total of the appropriations throughout the year. I didn't spend any of it, I didn't get it till April.
This is true. This
Page
is very
5 and
true.
6, all I did was take your regular report and summarize it by department. So what their original budget was, if they got any revisions, what their ending budget ended up being, what their actual was, and whether they're returning, what they're returning. If you look down, let's see, legal's probably a good one. Legal ended up needing $200,000 extra. They spent $439,510 on legal. So just because everybody ended up in the positive doesn't mean people didn't need assistance to get there. How's that? So we are returning $634,448.99. And you can see along, the reason I did this summary is you can pretty much see along those 2 pages where the surpluses were. Police department had $137,000 surplus. That was a couple of vacancies in their patrol. The only other really big one is insurance and pension, and insurance is tough. You know, it's $30,000 a family plan, so when you have other positions that you budget for that don't get filled, such as the treasurer's job that was not filled until the very end of the year, and I didn't take insurance anyhow, those are gonna leave you surpluses in that. And because we're fully insured and we pay somebody a premium, we can't not budget for them. And then the person comes in and needs it, then we have no way to cover their medical expense. So, so that is the balance, and the Board of Ed portion is $484.60. Pages 8A7 through 15 is just all the detail. So you can see every single account that either had money left or needs a transfer, which later when we do transfers, you'll see a 17-18 transfer. So I'll just give you an example now. In the selectmen, they were overspent in 3 accounts. Their travel, their central office supply, and their leased equipment. But there was plenty of savings, so I think I used postage to cover it because that had $11,000 left. So basically our charter says that I can use salaries to cover salaries and I can use operating to cover operating. So in this case, it's operating related expenses, so I took one that had extra and moved it to the other 3, and you will see that in detail in the transfers when we do the 17-18 transfers. But this is where we are at the end of the year. Does anybody have any specific questions regarding that?
I think it's cute. $1.91 left in the full-time salary. That is cute. You gonna buy a coffee with it?
I mean, it is what it is. We just pay the checks as they come. I mean,
Looking at it and go, oh, just buy the budget.
does anybody have any questions on 17-18? So 18-19. I know you guys had some questions on the assessors a couple months ago, and I got you an answer on it, but she actually did a really nice memo explaining the differences between 16 and 17. So I think that's helpful. It's $146,000 in change in taxes. So that is the net grand list for 17 after the adjustments.
It's a lot of changes.
Mm.
And that was a reval year. Everybody gets to have their say.
I actually have a question going back to the last year's budget expenses. We make transfers throughout the year when a line's overspent.
Yep.
Right? So all of these overspent are things that happen from the
No,
close of
we
the year?
only make transfers to lines that are overall overspent. So the ones we've been making to legal every month is because the legal section was going to be overspent. We never make them within because it says in our charter that we can cover salaries with salaries or operating with operating within the department. So we don't need to come get transfers every time. So no, they could have been overspent in last July. But I don't have to come because they can cover them in another line within their budget. Until they're overspent in total is the only time I have to come here for transfers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, they could have lasted a long time. Those overages could have been from a long, long time ago.
Was that union negotiations mainly?
The union negotiation was what?
Was that primarily union negotiations, the legal?
I don't think so. It's a whole lot of things. I mean, we're over, there's pension negotiations going on, so those are very costly. I think 1 month's bill was over $10,000.
Because I thought we were in between, or not in between, but we were selecting a different kind of legal.
We did change our lawyers,
And I thought it'd
right?
be a lot cheaper, apparently. it's
Are we
not.
seeing anything cheaper? in the change in lawyers?
The change in lawyers kind of occurred just a month ago, or less than a month ago. We are in negotiations with the police, and that's for bargaining, collective bargaining. We're going to go into negotiations with the dispatchers, and we're going to go into negotiations with the
Supervisors, right?
supervisors.
Yeah.
And all those three are being handled by Leclerc Ryan. Now, Leclerc Ryan is charging us, I believe it's $275, where if we had stuck with Pullman and Conley, it would have been $315. But now, like I say, in the last month, we have engaged Updike, Kelly and Spellacy as a legal firm. And so for the clerical negotiations, they'll be, and that's bargaining too, they'll be charging us $195. So that'll be savings we'll see, but we haven't started clerical yet.
It's tough too.
And unfortunately for us, all the unions were out of contract, some from the whole year before. So we had DEPW went through negotiations last year.
Right.
Supervisors actually expired in June of 17. So some of them have been a long time. So unfortunately now they're all bunched up.
And it's all retroactive to boot, so they'll get on Chuck. after
Yes.
Oh, I just love that retroactive word. Woo-hoo. Thank you.
So is everybody ready to go on to taxes? So 8B3 has the tax collector's report. Showing what she brought in for the month. The second page is probably the more important one. 8B4, it shows that she's collected 17.8 million of 32 million. And already 133,000 of the 300 prior. Motor vehicle sub will not get collected until January. Does anybody have any questions on that? Next are our revenue reports for 18-19. I don't think there's anything startling in there. If anybody has any questions. The only state money we got in so far was TAR, which is not unusual. Most of the cash coming in is tax collector. It is not broken out amongst the categories yet. Right now, we don't have a means to import the tax, so we are re-entering them into our financial system by deposit. So we put them all in as one type as current, and then we reclass them later. They used to reclass them at the end of the year, and I told them that's not acceptable. But to get numbers in, we put them all in current, but they will have to be a reclass, will have to be made. And I am working on trying to figure out how much it will cost to get that feed, because we should not be rekeying. And we rekey all the Board of Ed stuff, we rekey all the tax stuff. So the system stinks, plain and simple. There's nothing good about it. And I've had some training, and it's still nothing good about it. It didn't change my opinion of it. And I did put in a capital request.
So the training did happen though? Somebody
It
did
did.
finally come? Okay.
Well, he didn't come, we did it remotely, but most of the time he spent fixing the things that didn't make sense, like my fixed asset report had no net book value on it. I'm like, how can I run you tell me the beginning number, you tell me the depreciation, and you don't tell me the net book value? I mean, just basic accounting 101 stuff. They just don't have it. So he fixed my reports 2 of the 2.5 hours we were on there. He was scrambling to get things fixed so that they at least work the way they should. So just really not great accounting software. I mean, I have no confidence in the numbers of overall, like balance sheets and where things match and what the receivables are. I have zero confidence in any of it. I'm working piece by piece through it, but I will not get done before the audit comes, because the auditors will be here in about 3 weeks. And there's no way I'm going to get through everything before they get here. I mean, my fixed assets, my land doesn't even match. Now, land is land. It's on the town records. That should be an easy, I should be able to pull up my land records and they should match the audit. They do not. So So I'm working piece by piece, but I have a ton of stuff to look at still. So there will be more things. You'll see there's a little tiny adjustment in the 17-18, but it's like, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000. That account I asked you to create. Let's see. I'll tell you what page it's on. It's on, well, the very tippy top of 8A16. That prior year expenditure adjustment ended up being $2,759.87. We had some that went one way and some that went the other, and I just put them all through here. So we would know what needed to happen, but there's more coming because there's just so much stuff I haven't looked through yet. The day-to-day is happening fine. The bills are getting paid and recorded properly. The payroll's getting paid and recorded properly. The money coming in is getting recorded and recorded properly. But things like beginning balances that came from the other accounting software, things like accounts receivable, like sewer receivables for connection charges. I'm like, so where's this number come from? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you should have a spreadsheet that says, these are the people and these are what they owe. That number should match. And they're like, we don't have anything. And I'm like, we have to have something. So I have found a report, which really did work, but we were $130,000 off. The good news is, it's more money that's owed to us, but the bad news is that nobody even knew. I mean, those are kind of things I find every day. Every day I find something. My staff said, God, I hate to hear you sigh. But every day I find something that doesn't work the way it should or doesn't have anything supporting it. There should be nothing on our books that we don't know what makes it up. If there's an AR on there, we should know what 7 people owe us that money. There should be no question. And no matter what fund it's in, we should be able to do that. And we cannot right now. So I am working piece at a time. It will be a probably all-year project. By next April, maybe I'll be telling you that I finally through it. Well, in between, I have to still pay the bills,
Right.
still pay the people,
Every
and
day.
get ready for audit.
Yep.
And ready for meetings. And we're going out to RFP and pension. We have investment advisors coming. We have 3 next week coming for the 401 and the 457. So in between, I had to write the RFP, get the RFP out, get all the results, analyze all the results, put them together for the board, and now we have our presentations next week. So I have a lot of things going on, but I'm working one piece at a time.
It's not stressful yet, right?
No. It was stressful about 5 seconds after I walked in here. But I keep coming back, so.
The audit didn't audit balance sheet balances?
Well, when I asked today Mike where he got that number, he said, oh, it came from a report from Patty. So, but that report, I got it, and this year had a negative balance on it. And I'm like, well, how can my AR be negative? Did somebody overpay us and now we owe somebody back money? So I started asking questions and pulling the pieces together. And like I said, the cash part works fine. The payments that came in were $250,000. We've got reports from QDS that matches the $250,000. But there's other pieces on there, like in June, we took in $82,000. Well, we had no additions tied to it. And I'm like, well, that was 6 connection charges. Only $100 was a previous connection making a payment. So where are those 6 connections as additions? You're taking the whole 82 off, so you're bringing my receivable down into the negative, but you got no ads. If you've had 6 people connect, you should have ads for the total of those. And what they do for connection charges is they actually allow people to only pay half. So the car washes was $80,000. They can pay 40 and then pay 7 years with interest the next bunch of it. Homeowners is $6,500 and they can pay $3,250 and pay over the next 7 years. So that balance really is way understated. But the cash part of what was coming in was fine. It matches the bank, and we do all those reconciliations showing that the cash part matches the bank. But nobody like tied all the pieces together and said, okay, so what do people owe us now? And where's the list and does it match? So it's just those kind of things that.
That's
and
the
it's
WPCA
everywhere.
is collecting that money, is it not?
No, our tax collector collects them
It-
for the WPCA. She bills them and she collects them.
Okay, but WPCA has to tell her what to do.
She does, and she has them all. They're on her records. Her quality report is keeping track of them and billing them. But nobody ever took the whole picture and said, okay, we added this number on here, and nobody had even asked the question of where the number came from. I happen to ask it because it sent it negative. If they hadn't sent it negative, I don't know that I would have asked. But when there was all these additions and no addition on the spreadsheet, I said, so where's the additions? She's like, oh, that's not right. So then she came up with additions, but then I audited them piece by all the new FCCs, and they were still off. So all it is a spreadsheet. Well, whatever numbers you put in there, you're not gonna get right numbers. You're not gonna get a list of who really owes you if you're not keeping track of it. So it's just something where nobody bothered to look, and nobody went into QDS to find reports that match. So I found a couple that need a little bit of adjustment, but they're pretty close. So now I have a good number. Of course, the auditor wasn't happy because that's a beginning balance problem, prior year restatement, if it's big enough. So he was like, can you support that? And I'm like, oh, I can support it. You don't know how many days I've spent on this thing right now. So he, you know, it is what it is. I mean, and there will be more. Every time I touch something, I find something that nobody asked the questions. Nobody knew that AP was supposed to clear out every time we wrote checks. I'm like, your AP should be 0. When you finish your check run, you should have a 0. You put them in, you accumulate them all, and you write a check, and then it clears it all out. It should be 0 every time you don't have a batch started.
Right.
So people didn't know that. So
what were they doing?
no, they were just paying, they were putting them in and paying them. But there were beginning balance problems on almost every account. People brought things over from the old system that I'm not sure they could support. I'm not sure the old system could support the numbers that are in there. So some of these numbers are years and years and years old.
Yeah.
The AR goes back all the way to 2005 for the sewer. There are people who connected in 2005 that still have not paid it all off. Because their 7 years have come and gone and they didn't pay what they should have paid.
Right.
So they're just paying interest now. And there's a process that they can get involved with leaning and stuff like that to get the money from the people.
Yep.
But nobody even knew who owed what, other than individually. If you asked what John Smith owed, they could go run you his card and tell you what he owed. But nobody took the whole picture and said, okay, if I add all these people up, what do I have for a number now?
Right.
And nobody had done it.
Each piece was happening, but the whole was not.
Right.
So, yeah, I get it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yes, I'll ask again for my software. I'm asking CIP, and I
I
will
was
keep
gonna say, you
asking.
gotta talk to CIP on that one.
It's on my list, and they didn't include me on the presentation email, so I sent a little note. Hey, I put in a request, where's my slot?
And the auditors come in and say, what's the AR? You give them a
So yes, so the finances are here for the year, there's really nothing in there. I don't think anybody has any big questions on, there's really nothing spent, no significant dollars going out the door yet, because we're only a couple months in.
Yep.
Nothing that we know of is glaring and already spent. I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anything else we need to specifically talk about? Oh, I did change accounting, how we do capital improvements. In the old world, they used to take the 883 and do it as a budget revision, as a reduction, like there was no capital. And I'm like, you can't take away that you didn't do the capital. And they're like, well, we send it to another fund. I'm like, I don't care. It stays there. You write the check over to capital, and that's how you account for it. Because you want to show that it's spent.
Yep.
So I have fixed both years. So,
Okay.
but I've changed that process so it happens the way it should. So far we have spent $4 million with 1.1 of it being Board of Ed. Of our $39 million budget. And a big chunk of that was capital. We sent $906,000 over to capital. Right. And I do look at this stuff, and when people ask questions, I look into accounts. So I am looking at the stuff in between, like the day-to-day, to make sure things are happening. But I have no doubt that the day-to-day, money coming in, money going out through AP and payroll are being recorded correctly.
Right.
So a lot of it is just leftover
Right.
stuff that just needs looking at and cleaning up. And if we can't identify it, then we'll need to talk more about it.
Yeah.
So.
Hi, Bill.
Hey,
How are you?
oh, just wonderful.
How is that Big E traffic?
It was, I've been up there 7 of the last 8 days, and I've never seen it like it was tonight.
Yeah.
But it just, I mean, East Windsor Middle School, high school band looked really good in the parade today, so.
Oh, because it was Connecticut
Connecticut
Day?
Day.
They marched in the parade,
Yeah.
so.
That's cool.
I left there at 6, and I got here at 7:20, so I did all right.
Aye.
Gotta love it.
Oh, yes, that's it.
So does somebody want to make a motion to get Bill on board?
I don't think we need to,
No.
didn't I say when he comes in?
Did you say when he comes in?
Mhm.
Perfect. Good job, Sarah. All right, well, you're in.
Still crazy, huh?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much, Amy.
You're welcome. It is my job.
That it is. All right, so we're on to 8C, transfer request FY17, 8.
Okay, so I have just 3 relating to 17, 18. The first one is for $254,000, and the next 2 pages really tell you what it is. These 2 pages show you, the example I gave you of the selectmen is the very first one, and it shows the 3 accounts that were negative and how I'm covering it. So it's the back side of the transfer sheet. You can flip it over, fill in the one in your hand. That's the selectmen's, and so each department that needed transfers has a section, so selectmen, treasurer, assessor, tax collector, town planner. So none of these were overspent, but town planner I'll spend a minute on because they have 2 different transfers. One of them is salary full-time to salary part-time. And what happened was we didn't have an assistant town planner in the beginning of the fiscal year. So their part-time person worked more hours. We will have the same situation again this year because now we don't have a planner, so their part-time person is working more hours. So, so that has to be separate from the operational part where down below her education and dues was over because Matt has requirements that were not budgeted for, and then professional services, we used the balance in there to cover it. So it actually had a $4,000 balance, but we only needed 7. I'm on
So where's that
8C2, about 4 people down, the transfers.
On her town plan.
But the total was
The total's 0, because everything matches itself, right? So there's debits and credits that match, but I'm moving actually $254,000 between the debits and credits. And if you saw my spreadsheet right below that 0, there would be a 254 number, because I said, give me every positive account on here, and it was 254. That's how I know what the dollar amount is. So that's the first transfer. The other 2, I think you do every year. Well, I think you do that one every year too, but I think it's been presented differently. I think at one point they did account by account. You would have had 155 transfers for every line on these 2 pages if I had done that. The next 2 are moving money from the heart and hypertension line item, which had $42,000 left. It's $42,106.37, and moving it to the actual fund. Apparently, at some point, we'll be paying a payout for a heart and hypertension claim. So this puts that money over there. And I think I included those dollars. So you can actually see the section that shows that the budget for heart and hypertension was $50,000. We only spent $78,93.63, leaving the $42,106.37. So that's where that transfer balance comes from. And the other 2 pieces are moving the salary or the leftover savings for public works, salaries and everything, 100% of their departments, over to a storm emergency fund to be used if we have a terrible winter. So if you look at the public works line, they had a budget of $872,143.91. This is page 8C5. They spent $862, so they have $9,957.18. And the other line that we move is the road improvements, who had a budget of $450. They spent $442,208.80, so they are moving $779,120. So the total moving is $17,748.38. So those are really all just housekeeping, end of the year, things that have to happen.
All right, so who would like to make a motion?
I will move we approve transfer request number 44 for $254,862.95 to balance out the department negative split losses.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 45.
I move we approve transfer request number 45 for insurance and pension to move $42,106.37 for heart and hypertension to the fund, heart hypertension fund.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I'll move we approve transfer request number 46 for Public Works for a total of $17,748.38 to the Storm Emergency Fund.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, so for the 1819, the first one I have is, I didn't give you the right amount last month for the Human Services vehicle. It should have been $25,590. And when my staff went to go do the transfer, they realized I only asked you guys for $25,000 even. So there was $590 hanging out there. So you can see the original sheet that came from 7-6 telling you what the project was, and it should have been $25,590. And that's that one.
All right, a motion for number 13.
I'll move we approve the Human Services transfer for $590 from CIP to Human Services vehicle replacement.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
All right, so the next one is, I'm not sure we even need to do it. The police department has their own authority to move their money where they want. So, but form actually has Bob's signature on it, the Board of Finance signature on it, and the chief's signature on it. So I figured seeing it has the board, I can't find anything in the charter on why we have to do this, but they are choosing to move money from the private duty fund, so any admin-related fees that they collect for private duty jobs, they keep, and it's in their own fund.
Are you out of order on these?
I don't think so.
Oh, no, okay. Never
Right, we
mind.
did 13 already. Oh, that's just the support of last month's transfer. This is the one I had to fix.
Oh, okay, got it. All right, thank you.
So, so this one's 15, and then their sheet is behind there, and their minutes that they approved are behind there also, for the police department. So they had a flood. We had some heavy rain, and they had a flood. There was some kind of drain that was capped off or something, and it flooded into the place, and they want $15,000 to replace carpet, so they're taking it from their own fund, the private duty fund, and moving it to their CNR account to get their carpet replaced.
All right, so do I have a motion for number 14?
I'll move we approve transfer request number 14 for the police department, amount of $15,000 from private duty to their renovations, police department renovations.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right.
And I think that's it for those requests. Because the last one I have is tied to item 12.
The next one's to fix the dog thing, right?
Yeah, well, we have that down to number 12, so number 12 on our agenda, so we can go down there. All right, so we're on to number 9, Board of Selectmen updates and referrals.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say, because some of it's on the agenda, like the casino. If anybody wants to learn how to run that recorder, then you could, but I'll be here most of the time, so it doesn't matter. That's all.
Cool.
Oh, you need someone to turn it on and off.
Well, you have to get it all set up.
It's not that hard.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, maybe I should learn.
that would be a good thing.
Schedule, girl.
In your free time.
Yeah, yeah.
Trust me, be throwing you out.
Another piece of equipment that doesn't work right all the time.
Good kid.
All right, Board of Education updates and referrals, they are not here. So I do have to, I'm going to send out a quick email to Kathy and Christine. They had once mentioned that they would come every other month or stuff and update us, and it hasn't been happening. So I will shoot out an email if there's
She did
still-
send a response, I don't know if maybe she only sent it to me, saying that she didn't realize she was on the agenda. And even though she was on there last month too, and that she couldn't make it this month. But I think next month Kathy Simonelli said she's not here this week. So I don't know if they're gonna try to stagger who comes or how they're gonna
Okay.
work it, but she does know about it. She made some mention of it. Maybe
Okay.
the email one came to me
Yeah,
when
I
I sent out
remember.
the agenda. I'll forward it to you.
But it could have been like on one of your trails too, and I kind of, so we'll double check.
Yep. I'll make sure you
Perfect.
got it.
All right, new business casino ordinance.
So we got that handed out, but after the fact, so it wasn't in my package. It got emailed by Melissa,
Yeah, Maltese, not Maltese, LaBelle.
our new admin person.
Okay.
So it's the draft that the board, do you want me to make copies for you guys?
Yeah, please. Yes, please.
You have it, okay.
It was
Please
in,
and
it
thank
was
you.
in an email someplace.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Bought some extra copies too. Last thing's one.
Oh, I don't know. Wait, oh, that's a copy of, sounds like phones or.
Is the rumor true that we've lost the casino?
I beg your pardon?
Is the rumor true that we've lost the casino?
Not to my knowledge, no.
I asked, because I've heard two or three people say we lost it. Just figured I'd ask.
The way I understand it, one of the tribes has their federal approval, the other tribe needs to get it, then they can go for funding.
I've had a couple of
And they
those.
plan
Oh,
on being
okay.
done in 2020.
Okay, perfect.
We'll see.
That's all
Yeah, I know.
paperwork.
Here, let me give you these so I do not leave with them.
I guess I didn't save it. I
Do
opened
that.
it. I didn't save it.
Here you go. All right, so this is the one that got approved in the Board of Selectmen meeting?
Yes, it did get approved by the Board of Selectmen. It still says draft because it has to go to the voters, and it has to be at a town meeting, so, or on the ballot, but it's too late to get on the ballot, right?
Well, actually, what we were going to do is have a referendum the same day as the ballot, but the registrars were not happy with that.
I was gonna
so-
say, you can't do that. If you were gonna do a question, you should have done it as a ballot question, but you had to do it by like the end of August.
I had that choice to make, but
Yeah.
I've also talked to the attorney and the Secretary of State's office, and he said we could have a referendum the same day as the ballot. And then it wouldn't have to be on the ballot, it wouldn't be part of the state election. But it would be difficult for the registrars, so they...
Did you vote on this? I thought you were discussing this tomorrow based on your last meeting, no? I thought
Well,
it was
this was
going to be
voted
on your
on weeks
agenda.
ago.
Right, well, I went to your last Board of Selectmen meeting, but I thought you,
And we voted on this a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
I would
okay.
have to, it would
I
just...
think
Way
you
back
voted
then.
on it.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I thought there were still,
No, it was a
No.
long time ago.
I don't know. A lot of it, some of it really concerns me as far as I find it very vague. Especially the last paragraph about money deemed in excess shall be transferred to the general fund. Well, what is considered excess? I mean, I think that there's a lot of gray areas. It doesn't tell us who controls the money, what the money is going to be spent on. I just, I don't know.
I have a lot of the same
only
concerns.
thing
Yeah,
that this
for sure.
was intended to do
Right.
is set up a separate fund from the general fund.
Right.
And the statutes say, to set up a separate fund from the general fund, you have to say that you're going to do it, and where the money's coming from, and you have to say what the money's going to be used for.
I
That's all
know,
you
but
have
this
to
doesn't
say.
really tell you. I
Doesn't
mean,
tell me
to
anyway.
ensure that the issues associated with the casino are dealt with in a manner that supports its operations, the growth of East Windsor, quality of life, infrastructure, and public services. So who decides
Right.
Exactly.
that's meeting that? I mean,
That is yet to be decided, how we're going to distribute the money. All this is for is to set up like a checking account. We'll set up a checking account. And if you don't do this, the money will stay in the general fund. And,
Well, certainly, everybody understands that, but
Right.
but this is your one opportunity to set up the guardrails that you're gonna be
Right.
operating on, so it doesn't go off the rails,
it's
right?
not the one opportunity. This is the one opportunity you have to set up a separate fund.
Well,
Yeah, but you have
yeah.
to show how you're accounting for it. You said one of the requirements is how it's gonna be spent.
No, it isn't. And how it's going to be spent is number 2.
Yeah, but
Okay,
but
but
number
then
2 isn't
why-
worth the paper it's written on.
That's
But
interpreted
it's
by. Yeah.
this was
Different.
approved by our auditors. They said that this was sufficient to set up the fund, and that's all we're trying to do, is set up the fund. It's like setting up a checking.
And I
If
think
we're-
you're right, it does set up the fund, but I think it causes other problems.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
and we have to solve other problems. If we tried we had a town meeting and put forth an ordinance, and it had all this stuff in how we might distribute the money. Well, that didn't pass, and we're at the point where we just want to set up the fund. How the money's distributed is yet to be determined. And-
Okay.
Well, so who's
So
gonna
can-
be responsible for
All
it?
right, but wait, can I interrupt for a second? And I get what you're saying, Bob, and so to that point, I would say something like this line, monies will be reviewed annually and money deemed in excess shall be transferred to the general fund for the purpose of stabilizing taxes, shouldn't even be in there if we're just setting up a fund.
Absolutely true.
Because that's a rule, not setting up a fund, it's a rule of the fund, which you're saying that's to come later in number 2. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
think
I do
maybe
understand what you're saying, but
If this is to be set up just a fund, it should just set up the fund.
Right.
well, I
So
would say,
rules, do you know what I mean?
I would say you guys can vote against it if you don't like it.
Well, this
I
is the
will.
draft I thought we were discussing,
No, this is
No,
this
that's
is
what I
what's going to be on
They
the.
voted.
that it will fail.
That's
Okay,
what I
that's
thought.
not a
Alan.
problem. I don't care.
I mean,
Well, and
I
this-
think the idea is a good idea,
Absolutely.
no, absolutely.
because that $3 million coming in,
It
when
has
we
to
have
be
no
in it.
idea what other things the casino is bringing with it that we'll have to worry about. I think having the fund is a good idea. And I would hate to see it go to the general fund, because we'll be back here trying to spend $5 million
That
on
would be
CIP
completely
projects to keep our fund balance under the 17%. So if
It
it
would
does
be-
end up in general fund, we need to revisit the fund balance policy, because we cannot leave it at 17% if that's going to be the
Well,
case.
and that's exactly what I'm talking about, the money in excess
Right.
shall be and put into the general fund. No, first of all, if this is just to set up a fund, well, that word verbiage shouldn't even been in there. And number one, that is somebody who doesn't understand how our finances work. That's not me, I'm not vibrating.
So I have lots of concerns as the person who's going to be in charge of this money.
Right.
Because every dollar that comes in here is my responsibility.
Well, it seems like I understand why it was done this way, because it was so crazy when we tried to do the first ordinance, and everyone wanted to change little pieces, so it was an attempt to at least let's set up the fund, and then do the rest of the stuff in another
But it's still,
ordinance
what I was going to
policy.
say, is it going to be an
correct?
ordinance? I mean,
Yeah, it definitely would
how
have
are
to
you
be in
going to,
order.
right, how are you're not, this ordinance isn't really going to get you your fund ready to be rolled.
Okay, I lost track what I was saying.
Well,
But what I was saying, that what I'm concerned about is if you pass this piece of it without the other piece of how it happens, then you have money in a fund. If you don't have the how to do, then you can't touch the money. Then you can't do anything with the money. And if I know this town, it's going to be really hard to come to a consensus on how it's going to be done. But
Yeah.
I think you need both pieces together.
I'm also against the thing that says the casino are dealt with in a manner that supports its operation. Its operation is none of our business, and supporting its operation is none of our business. This is a casino mitigation fund, not casino operation fund. So that word should not even be in there.
Absolutely.
To
Support his
offset whatever the
operation.
casino creates for us.
well,
This is
okay.
never going to be an easy thing.
Well,
No, it won't be.
yeah, exactly.
It's just constructive criticism, that's all.
Well, I know. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
The first part's pretty good. So it's just and then you're going to have two parts. You've got to have one that sets up the fund, non-lapsing revolving fund. And the second part, it tells what you do with the money. And
What it's to be used for.
What it's to be used for.
And that's where it all fell down the last
Right.
time, and this is
know.
an even worse attempt at it.
Well, perhaps, but it fell down the last time, in my opinion, because it told not where the money, what the money would be used for. It told how people would distribute the money. And we don't want to have how people are going to distribute the money in here. We just want to set up the checking account to say what the checking account's going to be used
I
for.
disagree. We've got to set up the rules on how it's going to be done, because we can't even agree on the draft.
Yeah.
It's just 8 of us.
Okay, yeah, all right, so that's fine.
And it's just 2 points.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
that's what I said, if it was just to set up the fund, then number 2 shouldn't even be there.
No, it has to be there.
Yeah, I
It has
know,
to be
but what I'm
reversed.
saying
It
is,
needs to be right.
yeah,
It
it
needs to
just.
be right. Well,
it's
if you
just-
guys want to rewrite number 2, go for it. I would
Any
accept a
figures?
written thing from you guys.
I think that as a group, we could come up with something that makes sense from a finance standpoint, right? And at least it's a starting point. Don't forget that once you get into town meeting and you propose this motion, anybody can propose amendments to it. And that's where we got into that morass last time too.
I
so-
know, and maybe we have to limit that somehow. And I'll have to talk to the lawyer to see if we can, once we get this hammered out. And,
But I think it needs to be well-defined,
Yes.
like I
Right.
say, I'm listening.
And then-
I think
and then it
number
needs to
one's
be
good. Yeah.
sent out to everybody. It needs to be socialized town-wide, but prior,
To voting on it.
before the, yeah.
I agree.
will also go back to the auditors and see if I can get somebody else's revolving fund description of expenditures. It doesn't necessarily have to be casino, but the wording of, the technical part of how
Right.
you figure out where it's going. So,
And what it's used for.
I mean,
This is too.
this is just suggestions,
vague.
not
It
what
is
I'm
so
advocating.
vague.
It should say, and the Board of Selectmen will decide, or somebody's got to be the decider,
Right.
right? Otherwise, people are going to say, you don't have the right to decide that. And you won't be able to say, yes, we do.
And I'll vote against that. I would vote against that. And it would get out of the Board of Selectmen. I don't want to say who's going to make the decisions. I want to just say
well,
what
the
the
bad
fund's
news
going to be
is,
used
by
for.
default, I have to make the decision. Because I have to oversee
Now,
every dime
me-
that comes in and every dime that goes out. So, in default, it's gonna be to me, and I most certainly do not wanna get to decide whether we need 2 new police officers because of the time they're spending there, or whether we need more fire protection, or a different kind of fire truck, or the planning needs more people, because I do not wanna have to be the
We don't
person
need
deciding
any of that because we want to lower our taxes, right? Which is what will, if you don't define.
I think you need a
taxes.
process, and I would suggest the process would be very much like we do with the budget. We kind of do it in reverse, in the sense that we figure, oh, these are all things the town needs, and you guys work very hard at that. And then it gets, it goes to the voters, and they vote on it, and then we know an amount. And then we have to juggle the amount to meet our needs. We kind of have to have another process, and what I would suspect the process could be, and I mean, this isn't just, you can blow holes in it, but you got to put out a straw man and start with somewhere, is that people who feel that they would want money from this fund, and maybe you'd say the departments, maybe you can think of some other people.
Like
that
have a
might-
request process.
and
set up
exactly,
already.
Set it, give it to the Board of Selectmen, and then it would come to you, and then it would go to the voters to vote on, and maybe, and so we need a process to develop.
Well, the biggest problem is if it's bodies, that's an
Right.
ongoing cost.
I didn't
If it's
understand.
bodies. So
Like
if
if
it's
it's-
2 new police officers,
Right.
Right.
that's an ongoing operational cost.
Exactly.
So that would be my concern about these kind of dollars being used for that kind of a business. Because when these dollars go away, we still have 2 new bodies of
No,
officers.
but Actually, no,
That's
that would
why.
be,
That's the point.
that's just the point. When these funds went away, the only way to go away is the casino goes away, then you could say, we don't need these officers, and their salaries would leave, and the police department would lay off police officers because the casino went away.
I would think that the closer that you have to what our process is, like, that it would be easier to get through an approval process in town. If you make it, I mean, you have the budget process, you have, just like you have the CIP.
Yeah. Have
People
this
come
fund
in
as
and
its own.
say, the same exact thing. They come in and they justify the CIP and it goes through the whole process. The same exact thing for the casino fund. Anyone could, like, they request the money, justify it, goes to the same process, goes
Yeah,
through
yeah.
Bob, to the Board of Selectmen, through us, and have it be that way. And the first one's going to be not with the budget, because it's going to come up probably at a different time.
Well,
But
yeah,
I would
but-
think that the more that you keep it the same way, the more likely it is.
So
Like,
question
even if
for
you could
though.
just add that, like,
Well,
to be followed.
Yeah, to be followed with a process.
So maybe then the ordinance should say that there will be a process, and this is how the process will be done, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Rather
Request
than
will
trying
come
to kind
from
of
the Board of
nebulous put
Selectmen
it
or
out
from the
there.
department heads to the Board of Selectmen.
What happens though when you have, and I'm just throwing this out there because now we're just kind of, when say you have a vital service, like what happened with the budget this time when we wanted to break contracts. What happens when you have a vital service, like say you're saying the 2 police officers, or something happened with fire safety and you found out that whatever you need, who the heck knows? But, and then all of a sudden who's ever on whatever decides that that's not what they want, then you're gonna be, everybody's gonna be ripping their hair out because those 2 bodies aren't covered. Do you see what I'm saying? That stuff shouldn't be up for a vote, that stuff has to be done. If it's required,
Well,
it
it
needs
would
to be
be,
done.
it would be a vote and that position would stay in there until some kind of vote was made to not, right? So that money would always be reserved. So you would have to know that those dollars out of this $3 million that's coming every year, X portion of it is already spent.
Right.
If for fire protection, for police protection, for DPW or roads, I mean, it could be for whatever, but, so it's kind of cumulative.
As time goes on, more and more of that 3 million gets spent until it gets to a point where there's no
nothing
more
left.
mitigation funds
Right.
for anything else that comes up.
Right. But it's gonna kind of be a
Although
first come,
the-
first serve.
Well, that's gonna be
Because
the
once you
problem.
hire 2 officers, you're committed for the next X number of years that the casino's here, that those officers are gonna have a job.
And then what if like 9 months down the road, I mean, look at MGM with their, whatever, they've had how many attacks now or whatever. I mean, when you find this out after you open, then.
Well, I think that's,
you need-
I don't think there's gonna be any request right away. I think 3 months or
Wanna
6
bet?
months in,
There's
Wanna
going to be
bet?
requests ahead of time.
They've already made requests, are you kidding? They've
Yes.
already made, like, well,
As
we're
soon
gonna
as
need
they
this.
break
Well,
that-
how do they know
We're
the
gonna need
impact?
this because they're just assuming.
Because
But you have,
they
if you
did
were
research,
police officers.
their
They're
answer,
just
their
assuming.
answer, they did research.
Yeah.
They know what they need based on what others have needed, and so they're projecting because it takes, there's lead up, there's run up time. If you're gonna use the cops as an
oh yeah,
example.
it's 18 months before an
Right,
officer
so
comes in, gets
the-
through academy
I
and
guarantee
gets
you,
on the
the
road.
day that they start digging the hole over there, they're gonna
Right.
put that request in because they've gotta get those guys in, if that's what they're going to do. And I'm not advocating, I'm just,
No, I know, I agree,
How it
I
works.
agree. That's the stuff I think we need to protect though.
Well, I was gonna say, that's the part that
Versus-
makes me nervous.
Versus like the stuff that we've already had, like, and I understand she's no longer with us, but the planner already came up with, I'm gonna need this, that, and, whatever. No, it's gotta come to the life safety stuff first. And then the peripheral happens, I mean, that's just my other concern too.
No, and how do you
Okay, can
handle,
we make it
everybody's
warmer in
going to
here?
be complaining about the
Please.
traffic.
I am like
Does any
shivering.
of that mitigation fund money get put into some kind of partnership with DOT to
Well,
expand
that's
the
what I
roads or
said.
change the
It might,
grid or?
it might be,
Yeah.
it might be infrastructure. It might be DPW.
Yeah.
It might not just be public safety, being fire and police. It may be
Right.
DPW.
Yep,
Whether it's entrances or widening lanes so there's a turn-only lane or,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
the
exactly.
big fear is that parking lot, when you come out of what used to be Showcase, was no left turn to get on 91. Well, you can see the highway right there.
Right.
You can't tell me that people aren't gonna take a left turn there.
Especially
I
at
can
4 in the
tell you.
morning.
So maybe we do a median so they can't take a left turn there.
right, exactly.
But isn't that stuff that's I thought that's
a
ahead
state
of time.
road, DOT.
Yeah.
No, but he said a partnership with DOT.
Right, and that's,
Because really, all of them are state roads. 91, 5, 140. Anything that's going to be impacted by that is a state road. So there's really no our guys, but our guys will know the difference of what needs to happen. So, and there, if it's any kind of grant, there's going to be a match required anyhow, because the state never gives anything without you coming up
And
with your
that's-
share.
that's what it is.
True. Very true. All right.
But do it, if you do want, so I'd say number 2, you can, you know, if the Board of Finance wants to rewrite number 2, go for it.
Well, and what do you think about from the Board of Board of Selectmen, and you've had conversations, I'm sure, with all of them. I mean, instead of doing that, if you were to say, and the monies will be expended, you know, as, you know, to mitigate, and the way we're going to do it will be set up subsequently by a policy that'll be set up by the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen or something like that.
That would
But
work,
that-
although I personally would not, you could, if you put mitigate in, that would be fine. But you'd have to put something in addition to mitigate, because I think that would limit, people would come in and say that, well, I need this fund to mitigate, and they'd be searching for funds to mitigate if the 3 million but if you say to and I don't know if it's, it says here, casino has a positive impact. It's just like, so for a casino to have a positive impact, you'd have to eliminate all the negatives. So that would mean to have to mitigate all this stuff. So in a sense, that's in there, but it's just in a different perspective. But you could say mitigate and have a positive perspective, have a positive impact. But then if there's money left over, you might, it says here, I don't, it's operation, I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I'm kind of fluffy, I'm against the fluffy stuff like have a positive impact. That means pretty much anything you want it to mean.
Yeah.
So like, just strip that, you know?
Well, I like the next part
I
that
think
says,
you could
shall
have-
ensure the issues associated with the casino are dealt with in a manner that supports the growth of influence and quality of life, infrastructure, and public services.
Well,
That, if you got rid of all the other stuff and started there and said the process for this would be, if you started with the CFI shall ensure, because that right away says there's going to be issues, we know there's going to be issues, and this is what this fund is supposed to be.
And we don't need to define the actual process, but say how the process is going to be set up in a transparent manner by the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen.
Hey.
And then that piece can be done later. And I think that's what you guys are trying to do, is get that piece done later. But you got to say how that's going to be done, I
Well,
think.
okay,
At least
I'm saying, you
define,
guys write this
All right.
stuff down, that's good.
I will put together our thoughts.
And I know you won't get the votes if it doesn't say stabilizing taxes in there.
It has to not say.
Well, but-
You don't want to say
Can't go to the general fund, and that's the problem. He doesn't understand how that works. We take $500,000 out, well, what did we take this time? 450 out of our general fund?
475, right.
To put it in case to lower their taxes when we set up the budget, which we know we don't like to do. It's not a practice we like to do. But we haven't used it one of the years yet. So unless we put it in there as, in a different way, it's not gonna work that way. It just doesn't work that way.
A stabilization fund would be a separate fund.
The bad news is, right, it would be, you could do a
Right.
tax stabilization fund.
Yes.
But it would be a separate fund. But the bad news with that is, unless we had draconian cuts like they proposed last year.
Mhm.
So if they had been worse than we had budgeted, that would be the only time you would find yourself in need
Of
of
that.
that fund balance
Right.
allocation. Because there's always gonna be extra taxes. I mean, Prior's already $135,000 of the 300.
Yep.
So our chances of Prior being over the 300, I mean, we're 2 months in. And we're already a third of the way there, more than a third of the way there.
Yeah.
So that's the only problem with doing it like that, is then everything has to go bad at once for you to
Well,
actually.
let's not say that.
Right.
Big jinxie over there.
Can I ask this operationally, you know, and this is kind of, not to beat this all to death, but, so, year one, we get 3 million, we need 200,000 of that, say. So the other bits are, because we don't have any other mitigation to do that year, that stays in the fund. Then the next year, we get another 3 million, and we need the 200,000 and another 300,000. So now we're burning 500,000, but we've now got somewhere around 5.5 million, right? And that just keeps on going. When does, and as people start to see this bill, I mean, you could see this potentially not really needing truly any mitigation for, that's going to eat up all that, for, it's potentially. What happens if that fund gets to be $10 million?
Doesn't matter.
Like,
Still just a
That's
fund.
what that last line is supposed to do, that it goes to the general fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, but are
If it
they
goes to the
talking,
general
at
fund,
the end of
that's-
the year, they want 300,000 of the 3 million, if that's what's left, sent over there? Or are they talking, let it build up for a few years, see how, I can't imagine that the impact is gonna be seen right away. I think it's gonna
Right.
take time.
yeah.
And I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
the needs that we don't know about,
Yep.
because we don't know about it, especially if it's traffic and infrastructure, and that stuff takes a long time.
Right,
If we redo a road,
That's why
it could be
it should-
3 years.
exactly.
Is there
Before the road
anything
finally gets
in the
fixed.
agreement
And this
that,
is my concern is, so, after 3 years, and you have 7 million in there that's not spent, people say, well, I want my taxes to go down, so we wipe it out. Stupid, put everybody's taxes, one-time shot, put them down, right? And then, now we don't have any money for the $12 million, road improvement that needs to be done in year 6 or 7.
Right.
So we need to be careful
Exactly.
about wiping this out for stabilization. We need to,
Exactly.
it's a rainy day fund for mitigation.
And we don't know what the impact is 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road.
Right.
does the agreement that we signed with them, did we promise to provide extra police services or anything like that?
No, but they're gonna be a taxpayer like anybody else, and they're gonna expect
Right.
services. So when they call the police, they're gonna expect somebody to come.
And there'll be nights where there has to be somebody there the whole time. Just like,
Right.
Black Friday. at
Right, I
Walmart.
didn't know if it was in there that
No.
it said we will.
And that's private duty.
It's not in there.
Yeah, okay.
Their agreement is very brief, it's on the website, the development agreement with them. It's on the bottom, I think there's a,
Well,
Yeah, but I think.
I don't know
yeah,
about
we-
brief, it might be 20 pages.
yeah.
But, yeah,
We
I
have to
think it's
get
great.
this done, though, yeah.
Are you gonna talk
So-
about this at your board tomorrow night? Should we?
No.
No, you're not.
But if you give me something written that you guys vote on, that'd be great. And I'd bring it
So
up.
when are you thinking you're going to referendum for it?
Well, I don't think we will go to referendum, I think we'll go to a town meeting.
Okay.
Mainly because that referendum costs $4,000. I don't know
Right.
if that's,
And it'll be a nightmare for them.
Yeah, I mean, it does say at a special town meeting. On the cross.
But at a
across
referendum, you
the-
can't change anything at a town meeting, you can't.
well, and maybe we can, I'll have to go to the lawyer and see if we can change that. Somehow, maybe we can make a motion, I'm just gonna, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. Maybe you can make a motion to have maybe 2 items. One would be to not allow changes to the second motion. If that first passes, then we'd have a debate, but couldn't change the second motion. I don't know. We'll see. If
I
you're
don't know if
right,
you can
we
do
might
that.
have to, if it's, we're gonna
I
go
think
through this
illegally, you probably can't do that.
idea of the
You could charge the
modification.
$4,000 off to the first,
Then we could.
that would be the
That would be the
first.
first payment, yeah. That's great. That would certainly be a mitigation or whatever you want to call it. But that's what the registrars actually suggested. They said, why don't we have another referendum?
Because we could do
Separate
this whole
referendum.
thing and have it approved by the auditors and by the lawyer and everything else, and then it goes to town meeting and they change one thing,
Hmm.
all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Doesn't
it's
work
not- it
anymore.
doesn't
Yeah,
work
so
anymore.
maybe you're right. Maybe a referendum is what we have to do. And that would be making everybody available from 6 to 8 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. And the reason I wanted to have a referendum on the same day was to save the $4,000 and also to save all our residents. We had 400 residents come to that last meeting and spend, 3 or 4 hours at the meeting. That's taking their time, and we're asking them to take their time. And then people actually had to stand in line for an hour sometimes to vote. And I just didn't want to inconvenience people like that, but
They have to check when they're voting for the voting and for the town meeting, it's different criteria to be able to vote or not? Like
no, it's
how-
the same criteria for referendum.
So what was the registrar's?
They just check everybody.
They're not
what was
used to
their
this,
extra concern?
and one of their concerns was, well, I think it was just, they just didn't want to do it, but you're right, they would have to have a place, where if a person came in and said, I want to vote, and they'd say, well, you're not on the voter list. But they'd say, yes, but I have property, and then they'd have to say, well, go to that room and where they have. and-
Same day
Yeah.
registration.
And we were all going to have, well, it's not same day in a sense, it's if you're, have more than
Something
$10,000 or
verified.
$1,000 worth of property, you can vote in a money type of referendum. And we were going to actually have a ballot that was a different color, and so the machines could read it, and they wouldn't get mixed up. But that just got to be too involved. The registrar said they didn't want to deal with all that, and it's unusual. So
No.
I didn't fight.
But what's, changing with the registrars are doing, or having the town come back twice. They come back a second time and vote.
Yeah, well, that's what they
That's a pretty
suggested.
big, yeah.
Have
Well, it's
a
just-
referendum on a different day.
It's just, it's just not, I think if it gets confusing for the registrars, I think, and then it messes, anything gets messed up, then the whole vote
Yeah,
is
and that's-
useless anyways, so.
Yeah, and I think I prefer a referendum too, just from the standpoint of, everybody always complains about this town meeting, they can't make it, or like all the stuff you said is too much, where some people, they can come on in here at 8 o'clock in the morning if they want, or whatever, so I think a referendum probably
Yeah,
makes more
and the
sense.
4,000
More people could vote.
That's about 50 cents a voter, so that's not.
And do we know how far out we are before we even see a building permit or plans or?
No, although I think before we see, personally, this is my speculation, that it's going to be, I think it's going to be after the first of the year is when we'll see something.
So we do have time.
We do have time, and then
So-
this, for the first 3 million comes 15 months before the casino opens.
Right.
And then I think.
Which will be some months after that building permit gets here, because that's going to be an 18 to 24 month
Yeah,
process
they're
anyhow.
projecting spring of 2020 now.
I don't know.
I think that's, I just read in the Hartford Business Journal yesterday.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll move that we change the wording on number 2 in the draft of East Windsor Casino Fund Ordinance to the CIF shall ensure that issues associated with the casino are dealt with in a manner that supports the growth of East Windsor, quality of life, infrastructure, and public services. Requests will be made by the department heads and approved by the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. I don't know if we should add with specifics to later be determined, or
And the town meeting if necessary.
with a town meeting if necessary.
I beg your pardon, well.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do that.
What's our government about?
It's hard.
Town
It's-
meeting,
Yeah,
Well,
anything over what, $10,000?
my only thing is,
Has to
I'm
be
so
town
black and
meeting.
white, I wouldn't.
Gotta go.
What I'm suggesting is that you
The process to be determined or something.
determine
Right.
how you want number 2 worded.
Well, that's what
And
you
then-
just reworded
Yeah,
it.
and then I'll bring it to the Board of Selectmen, and we'll see what comes out of that. But,
I think it's a good place to start.
Well, it is a good place to start, and they'll beat it up and tear it apart again anyways,
Yeah.
and then it'll come back to us.
And then we'll
yeah,
do the
it's a good-
same.
that was just- it was a great dialogue. I mean, when we come to an agreement, we should have the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance in agreement. Why not? If we had that, that would be pretty solid ordinance.
So read it one more time slowly.
Well, do you feel that I need to add dollar amounts and things to this? Do you feel
No.
that I need?
No,
to-
no, 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 no.
Oh, okay, all right, so.
Just read it slowly one more time.
No, but before you do that,
Sure.
I thought we would put in that it would be specifically, we would say that a policy
Sure.
and a process of how
Procedure,
of the decision of how the things would be spent would be determined at a later date and time by the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
For, well, yeah.
She went
through an
one
ordinance,
further to
right?
say
Didn't they
that
say
it
it'd be an
would be
ordinance,
request.
through an
She went
additional
further.
ordinance or something like that?
Because you're kind of putting it into,
Yeah,
the money is going to be spent by, and I see, by department request, which is the way we do everything else, right? And I'm not sure that we want to use that same procedure with this.
That makes sense.
So say a procedure that to be determined or something.
Yeah, and I think that Alan said that the procedure of distribution of funds will be determined in a second ordinance, and that would allow the town to vote on this second ordinance too, of how the money will be distributed,
And that gives us,
or the process by which the money.
we have probably about 6 months to figure out that procedure,
Right.
or policy, or process. But we do have to get on the stick.
Well, you don't want to have, you want to have the policy, you have to approve both of them at the same time.
I don't think.
You don't have, you're saying you don't have to approve the
Not the
procedures?
procedure. They say
The
we're gonna-
procedures
we're gonna
don't have to
develop
go to
a
referendum?
procedure.
Yeah, we're saying, the way we're doing it now is we're saying why, what the money is going to be spent on, right? On the things that she named off. But we're not, and this is where we tripped up last time, right? Is because that last ordinance was very specific about who, what, and how. And people didn't like not having a say in that. I'm okay with that. We can figure that out, you know, I think we should figure out a different path for this money of how we figure that out.
But then that is going to have to go to referendum.
Right.
So we're going to have
Well-
two referendums.
Well, does it really?
That's why I said, can't you
Yeah, if
have
it's another
both of them?
ordinance, it would.
Well,
Can't you have
but
both
would it
of
need to
them?
be an ordinance? You know, we have,
I think it's an ordinance, it's good to have an ordinance because you can change an ordinance if you don't like it.
I don't think anybody would be happy not being able to have a say in how this was spent.
in the
You're
end,
going
or-
to hear, like, that it either would have to go through town meeting or referendum, that's.
yeah, and that's really the most, to me, the most important part. This is the nuts and bolts, but that operationally, that's really the part that where we will, if we don't have it well defined, we'll just fight over it nonstop and then screw it up.
True.
I'm just waiting till she returns.
Yes, I
Asked
know.
me to wait.
She had to go to the restroom. She had to go to the restroom.
So before I read the whole thing, based on what you said, is this to say the procedure and process will be determined at a later date through a separate ordinance? Is that
Okay.
what we agreed on, or what? Okay. Okay, so the CIF shall ensure that issues associated with the casino are dealt with in a manner that supports the growth of East Windsor, quality of life, infrastructure, and public services. The procedure and process will be determined at a later date through a separate ordinance.
Place to start.
And then we'll have to check with the lawyer, see if we can do that.
That's true. And also we'll check with the auditor to
Right.
see
Yeah.
that that's good to set up the fund with.
Well, you were gonna reach out to him anyways, right, for other towns,
Yeah.
maybe not casinos, but so you can kind of show him that too.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right,
Perfect.
so do I have a motion to accept that to send to,
I'll second it.
second it? Okay. Any more discussion? Like, more? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion clearly passes. All right, so we're on to number 12, unfinished business, which we started last week. Last week.
You didn't do the,
Oh, that's where I'm right place.
Huh?
Nothing, go ahead.
Okay. We talked about this last month, the dog fund deficit, which is another accounting problem. So now we have a transfer that the treasurer has asked to go from the line over to the dog fund to cover the dog fund deficit.
And even though we're returning 600 and something $1,000, we really need 600 something $100,000. We really need an additional appropriation, which is kind of silly, because it's leaving the general fund to go to another fund.
Right.
So the number here, I think I did the, let's see, did I do the backside to show you where the numbers were?
Yeah.
I don't know what I did with mine.
It's 12A3.
Yes.
Do you have yours?
No, I don't know what I did with mine. So basically, they ran a deficit of $2,396.12 this year. And they were at a deficit of $9,080.15 as of June 30 of 17. So currently, their overall deficit is $11,478.27. And the 14 should get us next year's deficit because it's not budgeted for in 18-19 either.
Okay.
So my 14 is a hope to get us from the 11.5 we need right now to be in the positive until we, now during the 19-20 budget, we are going to have to do something.
Right.
To make sure there's a line in police for the additional expenditures that are coming through that are not being right now
by-
covered.
Right,
And they do know about it and they did say they were fine with that.
okay. Yep. So we're gonna fix it, but right now, we're fixing what was broken.
And that was because Mike said the deficit needs to be taken care of.
Correct. And that's why we have an auditor. All right, so, well, why don't we make a motion, we can talk about it more. So do we have a motion for transfer number 47?
We approved transfer number 47 for the Treasurer's Department for $14,000 to, I guess it's a special appropriation to the dog fund balance deficit.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
This is for, and I missed last meeting, it
Yep.
was unavailable. This is for the dog pound.
This is the accumulation of the deficit relating to the dog pound and the animal control officer salary stuff.
Okay. Got it.
So we don't budget for like the training or pound supplies or vet bills or anything. Right now, we budget for their salary
Right.
and their FICA. And then we move it over to that fund. But all the other things relating to that fund, we do have a little bit of income that comes in, about $8,000 comes in, but then 5 of it has to get turned over back to the state. So there's about $3,000 left, but it's not enough to cover everything but salary and FICA. And that's right now all we budget for.
Now, in discussion part 2, the only problem is typically Bob would sign this. Bob has not signed this. And you might,
I'll sign it in a sense, but I wanted to make sure we just didn't leave this. I wanted to know we had a process. And according to Amy, in 2020, or whatever, it's 1920 or is it 2021?
No, 1920, the budget we're gonna start now. The
2000.
police are gonna
Okay.
have to put somewhere around $3,000 in a line.
And I think I want to discuss a little more now, because what you're doing is saying that you have a fund, which you have money coming in the town clerk's office. So you
But it
have-
goes to that fund. That money that comes in for the dog licenses comes in through the town clerk, but gets deposited in the dog fund.
Yeah, and you're also going to budget money from the general fund.
To cover the
so-
shortfall.
to
Because
cover
there's
the
not enough
shortfall.
money coming
So-
in to cover their bills.
That's right. So.
And we
you're
already
gonna-
do budget it in the general fund. Right now, we budget the animal control officer and their FICA in the general fund.
right.
And we move both the expenses and the budget over to the dog fund. So we're already doing a chunk of it. We just haven't done the
Explain
rest
that
of
again.
it.
So you have salaries for the animal control officer.
Yep.
In the police budget.
Yep,
And then you do a transfer from the police budget to
to the
this.
dog fund.
To the dog fund.
Yep, so if you go into the police section on page 8A, you'll see it.
Okay.
So
I didn't know that.
if you go into the bottom of 8A9, the police department, the very bottom,
Okay. Okay.
when you get to the end of the year, so if we looked at an old one, you would see actual year-to-date salary in that line, because we do pay animal control officers. But if you see here, there's no actual expenditures anymore, because we've moved the $23,000 budget along with the salaries, and the 23 covers both the salaries and the FICA, and then the overtime is the other piece that got transferred. So the 23,954.96 budget reduction and the 988.89 are both animal control related expenditures. So we take the budget in here for them. What they're not budgeting for, there's not a line for supplies and equipment that includes animal control.
I'm not understanding this. So you have the police department budget, and you have an animal control officer's salary. Original budget 33,000.
Yep.
A budget revision, you took away 10,000?
No, 23.
23,000.
Yep.
You have 10,000 left.
Yeah.
Or a little more.
Which we left in the general fund.
Which you left in the general fund.
Because the expenses for the salaries only equal that 23,954 plus the 988 right below it, the overtime. So the expenses relating to salary relating to animal control for the year were just shy of $25,000. So they're
Yeah.
animal control officers, because they had some vacancies. So they
Yeah.
didn't spend the whole 33, they only spent 25 of it.
And you transferred that to another fund?
Yep, and the expenses that go with it. That's a process that has been in place forever.
Oh, okay.
We budget in there, and we transfer it out and send it to the fund where it really belongs.
Okay, and the 9,000 stayed in the general fund.
The 9,000, the leftover, stayed in the general fund. But what we should have done is had another line that said animal control expenditures, so that we could have budgeted $3,000 or $5,000, and then we could move that budget over there to cover vet bills and training.
And that's what you're gonna do?
That's what we're gonna do for the 1920.
Well, as long as that's fine.
And the
I'll
chief
sign
knows about it. I gave him a couple choices. I mean, technically, we could have closed the whole animal control fund, but then it makes the state reporting a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because then you gotta go pick all the pieces out of the other fund. So it's way easier to keep it separate. Mike sent a memo saying it was fine to be in its own fund, however, the deficit will need to be eliminated. So that was Mike's answer when I asked. I didn't think it could still be its own fund, because yes, it has its own revenue source, but bringing in $8,000 and spending $40,000 isn't really helpful.
No.
No, and there, yeah.
So, but he said it could be in its own fund. The chief would rather leave it in its own fund. He's willing to put that line forward. So
That's good.
I guess we should, though, probably, I don't know, sometime in the budget process, come up with that new account, because that's
Right.
one of the things I have to ask you guys for.
We're gonna have to make a motion during the budget process and create it, and get it
Yep.
going. So, all right.
So do you
Is
understand?
it a new line item?
Well, we're going to create a new line item called Animal Control Officer Expenditures.
Yeah, and do
'Cause
you
if
refer to
not-
that as an account? Is the line item an account?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you didn't have a supply line in yours, I can't technically add it to your department if you've never had it without coming here.
Mhm.
So,
All right, any other questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we are on to board member comments. What end wants to start this week? I mean month, why am I on this week?
I can go if you want.
Sure.
Just that this Saturday is Heritage Day. The parade begins at the reservoir at 2:50 p.m. and goes down Main Street. And there'll be a nice little event at the Harrington property following, and fireworks. And the burial of the time capsule is here on Sunday at 2 o'clock, and I think it gets buried at 2:50. So look forward to seeing you all there.
Anybody else, Kath?
no.
All good?
No,
All right, Cindy?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm good.
All right, we're all good this week, that works. So, next meeting is October 17th. Oh, no, I think, okay, but let me just look. A lot of things that are popping up.
I was going to say, do I have the wrong one? Wrong again?
No, you don't, I'm just looking at me, just so I can tell.
Wait a minute.
Nope, I'm good, all right. So the next meeting is October 17th, and if we could have a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
So you think the 29th is going to be good for you? You can still do it?